All right, guys, this is the video I did not want to make, but I'm going to start with the ending first. I cannot recommend you getting an iPhone 16 Pro or maybe even an iPhone 16 at this time, with exceptions to the rule, but for most people, I do not recommend this phone. The main thing we have to address right now, the elephant in the room and the certain button in the room, is it's an incomplete phone. Overall, the iPhone 16 Pro and the iPhone 16 are incomplete phones at this time. As of recording this, it's been about 2 weeks since the iPhone officially released to everybody, and we don't have any Apple Intelligence that is accessible to the general public. You can run an early beta and get some of the UI features that are implemented, but even then, it's not Apple Intelligence. There's just UI features, and they're really not that good. So for all the marketing and everything that Apple is touting about Apple Intelligence, the AI features, none of it's here right now. So why would you buy something without having the thing that it's promoting present? And then for the other thing, the thing for me personally that I do not like, it's the camera control button. The UI is not good, and the one thing that I would want to use this feature for, I can't technically use it right now, which is to click it when I'm using the main sensor of the camera lens, the fusion lens or whatever they're trying to call it. When I go to click the camera control button, it doesn't start recording. It'll only take a photo and then that's it. I guess it's supposed to like autofocus at some point, but even that's a feature that's not out right now, a feature. So as of right now, the button just feels half-baked and it feels incomplete. This whole experience feels incomplete. The software and the hardware, I'm not vibing to this. With that, we're going to talk about the things that I do like and the things I don't like. Because when I started writing the review for this video, I wrote 6 things that I really, really like and 6 things that I really, really don't like. So I was like, man, I'm kind of torn about this phone. Do I want to keep it or not? Because I bought this with the intent on keeping it. But the more I sit with it, the more I realize that like I can't. In good conscience, I can't. And to further prove my point, I'm recording this video back on my iPhone 15. Base model. I'm just recording it like this through OBS and using this mic because the audio mix is trash. Everything that I was trying to do and work off of this phone for it to be a creator's phone sucks. It just does. Anybody who tells you it doesn't, they're lying to you. So with that, let's talk about the things I do like. So one of the first things that caught my eye, something I have been actually using since the iPhone 13s, is the photographic styles. I really like that feature because I don't like using a lot of third-party apps. My apps are actually very minimal. So anything that's a stock app, an in-house app, I tend to use that over something maybe even arguably better. But for what it is, I just don't use all these other like photo editing features. But I did like the photographic styles. So when it came to an upgraded version of that, heck yeah, that's been my go-to. I have it preset right now. I went into settings and I picked some of the photos that I liked and I ended up going with like this amber undertone, which was really neat. And I was able to even bring out some of the contrast more. So I bring the little dial down and there's contrast to it. So to make my photos feel more like mine, and so there's a bit of continuity between my photography, I really liked using photographic styles. I still do, but I really, really like how it's implemented in the iPhone 16s. I wish there was a way to kind of do that for video, but I understand there's more going on for video, so you can't just do that. But for what it is, just for photos, yes, I like it. And I also like that you can go in afterwards, post, and make more corrections or alterations to it. So that's a welcome feature. The other thing that I actually found myself using a little bit more than I thought was these new image formats. So I'm not just talking about the HEIF, but also JPEG XL. And I also toyed with, shooting RAW just to see the differences, but I don't really care for RAW. It's a very big file size, but the JPEG XL lossy, whoo, that was actually kind of fun to use. I like using that for preserving a lot of data and information, but at the same time, for me, a HEIF file is more than enough. And something I was just alluding at the beginning of the video, I really like the new updated Siri animation when I'm using the UI. Specifically, all I wanted with my iPhone 15, if it came to this iPhone 15, I would keep the iPhone 15, but all I wanted was to be able to double tap the home bar and then comes up the text to Siri, which is really neat. I like that because you can interact anywhere in the system, and then when you're done, you can, and there's you can drill down after engaging with some of the prompts that come up. You can drill down to it, and then when you swipe up, it doesn't take you to another app or another location. It takes you right back to where you were at before engaging with Siri. So I really like that. The little round circle thing, that's cool, I guess. It's fine. That part I'm indifferent. I just like the idea of having the updated intelligence baked into using a type to text. And this one's a surprise even for me because I haven't used this feature in many, many years. Many years. I'm thinking about it, but I actually really, really, really like using the 5x telephoto lens. There's something about being able to punch in so far when I'm outside and I get enough light into the lens itself, the sensor, but being able to punch in, take the photo, and then its processing is happening, and it's just very refined. I like taking photos of my backyard because I have a very nice view. But so not just that, but just out and about, I found myself utilizing the 5x zoom a lot more than I thought I would have, and admittedly, that's something I'm going to miss when I return the phone. Something else that I enjoyed a little bit more than I was expecting is the 4K at 120 frames. That's kind of neat because I'm able to control after the fact what frame rate I want it to be. So you get to still preserve all the information all the same. So it's neat to just have the highest possible recording with the highest frame rate possible, and then you can adjust and alter your video in post, and I ended up doing that in some of my earlier videos as well. So that's a fun feature. Kind of, I wouldn't say it's a gimmick. I just know I won't be using that as much as I would be using like the 5x telephoto zoom, but I did like using the 4K at 120, and that's going to be another one that I'm sad to let go of. And the very last thing that I liked using about this phone that not that I took for granted, I just don't have the option to use it for all these other phones that I've been using, is having the always on display on. So when it's off, I'll show you right now, because I have my notes right here, I turn it off, and then boom, it's right there. I like this. It's clean, it's small. I have the text, the font very, very thin on purpose, and then when I wake it, it just kind of shows up like that. So I liked having this like this, and then when I was using it in the standby mode, when it's in landscape, I got to see like a photo album of me and my kid and my wife and all three of us just living our lives. It's really neat. I do like that. Not enough to keep it, but something that I am finding myself appreciating a little bit more every single day that I'm living with it. But that's about it for the things that I like. Let's talk about the things I don't like and why I'm ultimately going to just return the phone, outside of it being an incomplete product right now. The first thing, the thing that's probably the genuine deal breaker for me and why I'm not enjoying this, it's a twofold here, but the first one is that, one, it gets really, really hot when I am filming anything. The phone, whatever cooling system is supposed to be updated in the 16s, I'm not getting that. It is a really hot phone to the point where it's almost very uncomfortable to hold on to and to touch. I have to stop and let it cool down. I'm like, this is not good for the battery long term, and it's not good for just my comfortability of holding on to the phone. It's supposed to be compact and convenient, and there's nothing convenient about a burning, scorching hot phone. I don't like that. It tells me there's something wrong with the phone, that it needs some updates or something, but just the fact that it's so hot to the point that it's burning my hands, I'm not down with this. I wouldn't want my son to touch the phone or my wife to touch the phone, so I'm not keeping the phone mainly for that reason. That is number one deal breaker. But the other side of that coin that has to do with the overall phone, the second thing about what I don't like about this phone, and it's a personal thing, and it's probably sacrilegious to say it in the tech community, I do not like the very, very thin bezels. They're almost too thin. In fact, no, they're not almost. They are too thin for my meaty hand thumb thing. I don't like using a thin bezeled phone, as I've come to find out. It has all the problems that those old Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, whatever phones had as well. All the time I'm having accidental inputs. When I'm watching a YouTube video, I am clicking onto a next video because the way I'm holding the phone at the bottom, the meaty part of my thumb just engages with the screen, and the screen doesn't acknowledge it as like, oh, it's an accidental input. It just moves on to the next thing. So it does it when I'm watching videos. It does weird things when I'm recording the videos, especially when I'm holding it like this for whatever reason. Even if I'm going like this, holding the phone like this, still sometimes right here will give me, with the back of my index finger, is touching the camera settings when I'm in there. So it's not helping me. And every single day, multiple times a day, it'll stop scrolling or whatever the case is, because it's acknowledging a different input that's not me with engaging with the tips of my finger. So it's not a good experience. It's too thick for my liking. Maybe if I put a case on the phone, it will thicken out the bezels a little bit and I won't have those issues. But I don't like the idea of having to use a case. I didn't want to use a case with the iPhone 16 Pro. Even if I was to keep it, I like how white and clean and pristine this style is. It's titanium, for God's sakes. It should go without a case. But nevertheless, the bezels are too thin. I don't like them. I alluded to this in the very beginning, but camera control, it's not good. It's actually really bad. And we talk about accidental inputs. I'll just hold the phone normally like this, and this right here is enough where the meaty part of my thumb is hitting that part. So I'm just holding like that, and then the slightest click right there. The slightest click opened it up like that. So, and then when I'm in the app, as you can see, it will start to it'll move it and click and do all these things that I'm not interested in, but I can't use the meaty part of my thumb to slide. So it's just annoying all around. I don't like camera control. It's a feature just for the sake of being there that didn't need to be there. I much rather have the action button mapped to open my camera and then use it to click and all that. It looks like it's in a better position. Maybe if the camera control was more elevated from the frame, then you might have better engagement. I'm not too sure. I don't have enough time with the phone to realize what is actually wrong with it. I just know it ain't working. Now, this one, by all means, is very subjective, so you could take this one with a grain of salt for your own case, because this is just for me. I don't really like the colors this year with the phone. Not the same way I like the iPhone 16 base colors. Those things are nice. These ones, no, I don't like any of the colors. I do like the white because it's really white, but it's almost like a compromise because I like having color. If you know me, if you've known me for a few years now, you know that I like the color green, which is why I have a green case on the iPhone 15, which is why I had a green 13 mini or Alpine green 13 Pro Max for a minute. I like having the color green, or just having the option to have some type of colors present, even on a Pro model. We used to have product red, right? Like even that's gone, and that never even came to a Pro model or their version of a red. But having these monochromatic colors like black, white, natural, that to me, like a grayscale iPhone is supposed to speak premium, I guess, but there's nothing sexy or exciting about those colors. And now with the desert titanium, that's just an off hue rose gold mixed with a little bit of gold. It reminds me of the iPhone 8s, and I did not like the iPhone 8s at all when we talk about the gold. As you've seen in multiple videos now, and why this video is being recorded with this mic, the audio mix doesn't work. And that was me EQing the mother after the fact. I tried fixing it up as best as I could, and I engineer, I produce music. I know how to get into the frequencies to make things sound better, or to at least make things pop. I know how to do that. And I couldn't do it on this phone. The mics were just bad. Yeah, at least the software was. They say they have these new 4 studio mics. They sounded better without having the audio mix involved. But then if I'm being really honest with you, it sounds no different than if I was using the mics off of that phone. And this mic right here, which is a dedicated mic I spent, I don't know, $300-$400 on this thing. This sounds infinitely better. You actually get the whole spectrum of the frequencies in my voice when I use this mic, which is why I record my music and my vocals on this mic. I got a new album coming out, so, I did use this mic for it. Overall, I hope to see improvements in the audio mix features or the software portion of the camera, because the idea of it is really, really cool. It's just, maybe it's a Gen 1 thing. I hope it's a Gen 1 thing, but it sucks. What can you do? Lastly, the one that was very disappointing for me, I really wanted to like the 48 megapixel upgrade to the ultra wide camera. And unfortunately, when I took photos with this thing, and I even took them raw, I took them in the HEIF format, it's not that much different, to tell you the truth, overall between using this one and then using the long-standing 12 megapixel ultra wide, the same one that's present on my iPhone 15 and every phone leading up to the iPhone 11. I didn't notice that much of a difference. I noticed better sharpening came from it when it did the post-processing with machine learning on it, or whatever we're supposed to call it now. If it's not AI, I don't know. But I noticed that it did. I think that's more of the A18 Pro chip doing its thing. So there was some improvement in maybe the color grading of it all. But when it comes to like quality of the photo, it was still noisy. It was still kind of sometimes even somewhat blurry. There was the sharpening that you would expect to happen on an ultra wide the same way that they do on the main sensor. It almost like they went into the photo afterwards and you go to the sharpening tool and you scroll it all the way to the max sharpening. It almost felt like it was trying to do a version of that. So to me, all that to say, I love the ultra wide camera. It's one of my favorite lenses to use when I'm outside taking, scenic views. I like using that lens, but it's really not that noticeable. It's not that different from the one that's from the iPhone 15 or earlier, going all the way back to iPhone 11. Not that much different. So unfortunately, I'll take a pass on that and just stick with the 12 megapixel. That's good enough for me, especially since the iPhone 16 now has the macro mode. So there's a bit of a focusing in that one too. Everything that I am liking about the iPhone 16 Pro is present on the iPhone 16 as a whole. So there you go. That's my overall synopsis, review, whatever you want to call this, about the iPhone 16 Pro. I wanted to like this phone, and in some elements, I do like this phone. And I would have been okay keeping this phone if all those other things that I had criticisms for that I was listing off, I could see past it if this was not an incomplete phone. Apple Intelligence is not present yet, and I do not condone, recommend, or anything. Buy something now for the future promise of software updates later. Sound familiar? It's applicable here. I do not recommend this phone. I can't recommend this phone right now. It is the most incomplete iPhone I have ever used, by far. More so on the Pro than maybe even on the 16, because with the 16, there's certain limitations that you're okay with, that you accept for the price that you're going to pay for it. Even if you're not like, oh, I don't like 60 hertz, or that the fact that there's not an always on display. I hear you, I understand, but you know that when you use that phone, you're going to be using 100% of that phone, and you're going to get your money's worth out of it. If you bought an iPhone 16 Pro right now, at least at the time of recording this and at the time of posting this, if you bought an iPhone 16 Pro right now, you by design are not using 100% of this phone because it hasn't been released, all the stuff that was promised. So what? Let's entertain this. Even for the people outside of America, you get an iPhone 16 Pro, and at some point in 2025, you get Apple Intelligence. And then what? Then you're 6 months away from getting an iPhone 17 or a 17 Pro, and then that one comes from day one, Apple Intelligence. So you bought this phone, built from the ground up for Apple Intelligence, and you spend most of its life not having those features. I can't recommend this. It's not a good. I'm a guy who votes with my money, and this is not the message I want to send to Apple, that it's okay to ship something with future updates later. And we get that all the time. Deep Fusion was one of them. There's so many updates. Spatial video and photography, I think, for the Apple Vision Pro was another last year. I understand that. I get it. But when the main marketing is AI and it's not present, and if you're in America, they say you're going to get AI by October or November, or who knows, but within 2024. But even then, not all the features are going to come out when it drops. So what are we doing here? At this point, for me, I am most comfortable just sticking with the iPhone 15 anyway, because at least I know that's a complete phone for what I paid for. If or when the AI features come out and they're really good, and I feel like, okay, now I want that, then maybe I will reconsider and I will look at maybe getting an iPhone 16 or a used iPhone 15 Pro. Or maybe, I doubt it, but maybe I will go back to the iPhone 16 Pro. I'm not sure. But as of right now, I cannot in good conscience tell anybody who's willing to listen to me to pick up an iPhone 16 Pro today or this month. It's not worth it. We're sending Apple a bad message by saying, hey, yeah, that's fine if all the stuff's not present that you're marketing, and I'll still buy it anyway. I'm as big of an Apple sheep as the next person who wants to talk about this stuff, but there's something so icky and gross still happening here. I can't recommend it, and I hope it gets resolved very soon. But until then, just stick with the phone that you've had before, the 16 series. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, let me know down in the comments. I'm more than willing to have a conversation with everybody and see their points of view with all this stuff. And if you're actually on the fence and my video helped you in any way, let me know in what direction it steered you. If you were looking for confirmation bias and you didn't get it from me and you're still going to get a 16 Pro, more power to you. I wish you the best on that. But for me, I mean, this is just where I'm at. But there's always next year.